I never thought I'd end up in a situation like this. I was always the responsible one, the friend everyone came to for advice, the cousin who helped plan family gatherings. When I married Chris in my early 30s, I thought I'd done everything right. We dated for a couple of years, built a life together, and then decided to start a family. 8 years later, we had 2 beautiful daughters. The first time I noticed something was off was about a year after our second daughter was born. Chris, who always prided himself on providing for his family, suddenly announced that he needed a break. You needed a break right after your second daughter was born? Are you taking the break with your wife? He and a couple of his buddies were planning on a weekend trip out of state, just to decompress, he said. And your wife? I remember standing in the kitchen exhausted, hair unwashed, holding our baby who hadn't slept through the night in weeks. I wanted to scream. I was still recovering from childbirth, barely getting 3 hours of sleep at a time, and here he was talking about needing a vacation. Girl, I would have screamed. But I bit my tongue. No. I told myself to be supportive. No. He works hard, I thought. He deserves time too. You're working hard too. You have 2 babies, a newborn. You just went through childbirth. He expects you to do this by yourself? When he came back, he was all charm, showering me with gifts, hugging me from behind, calling me beautiful. Well, yeah, he just had time to refresh. Part of me was relieved, but another part couldn't ignore how he suddenly wouldn't let his phone out of his sight. Chris used to be the type to leave his phone on the counter for hours, sometimes overnight. Now it was always in his pocket, even when he went to take out the trash. Red flag, red flag, red flag. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid. I didn't want to be that wife. But months later, I saw something I couldn't ignore. He'd left his phone face up on the nightstand while he showered. A notification flashed across the screen. A name I didn't recognize. Then another. Later that week, while he was asleep, I looked through his call log. I know this is going to be controversial, but I don't agree with looking through your partner's phone. 2 unfamiliar numbers showed up over and over again. Daily calls, sometimes multiple times a day. And the timestamps? Late at night, right around the same hours I was awake nursing our baby alone in the dark. The next evening after dinner, I decided to say something. The kids were in the living room and I tried to sound calm. Hey, I said, I noticed you've been on the phone a lot lately. Is everything okay? He didn't even look surprised. He just laughed and said, oh, that? I reconnected with some friends from high school. You're overthinking again. Oh, I'm the crazy one. His tone was light, dismissive. Then he reached over, gave my shoulder a little squeeze and said, don't worry so much, babe. It was meant to comfort me, but it felt patronizing. Are you sure? Because it sounds like you're on your period again to me. Still, something in me wouldn't let it go. I started paying closer attention. The way he smiled at his phone, the little smirk when a message came in, how he always tilted the screen away from me. One night, after he fell asleep on the couch, I finally gave in to the gnawing feeling in my gut. Although previously I'd gone through his call log, I hadn't gone through any other part of his phone. Now, I feel like I have to. I unlocked his phone. My hands were shaking as I opened his messages. What I found made my stomach drop. There were long threads with several different women, graphic messages, photos, flirty jokes about his boring wife. I saw messages from his trip. He'd met 2 women while he was away. They'd kept in touch, sending explicit pictures and laughing about how I'd never find out. One woman even said, doesn't your wife suspect anything? And he said, she's too busy playing mom to notice. So they know you have children and they don't care. I just sat there staring at the screen, scrolling and scrolling. The dates went back years, almost to the beginning of our marriage. That night, something in me broke. I remember setting the phone down and staring at him asleep on the couch. This man I'd built a life with, had children with, defended to everyone, had been betraying me almost the entire time. I didn't cry right away. I just felt hollow, like my entire life had been rewritten in an instant. I felt physically sick. My whole body was trembling, my stomach twisted in knots. When morning came, I couldn't even bring myself to look at him. I moved through the house like a shadow, keeping my distance, pretending to be busy. Chris noticed right away. "What's wrong with you?" he asked, trying to sound concerned. Honestly, I think at this moment, I wouldn't be able to hold in the anger because I would be like, "What's wrong with you?" My throat was dry when I finally said, "I saw your messages." The color drained from his face. For a moment, he looked like a cornered animal. Then suddenly he softened. His eyes filled with, oh God, is he going to cry? His eyes filled with tears and he started crying, loud, messy, shaking, and we all know it's a bunch of gaslighting, right? He swore the messages were old, that it wasn't what I thought. It never is it? "I didn't cheat recently," he said. "You cheated recently in the past 12 years ago? Are you serious?" "That wasn't me. I've grown up since then. I was just young and stupid. Please, you have to believe me." "I have to?" He fell to his knees and grabbed my hands. Then, before I could react, he kissed my feet, sobbing and begging me to give him another chance. I just stood there numb. I didn't know what to say. A part of me still wanted to believe him, and another part knew exactly what he was doing, manipulating me. Run with that part. But in that moment, I was too overwhelmed to think clearly. I told him we'd try and work on things. No! I didn't want to blow up our family on an impulse. That's not an impulse! For a little while, it almost seemed like things were improving. He cooked dinner a few times. He took the kids to the park. He did basically the bare minimum, and you're forgiving him for that. He told me he was trying to be a better husband, but it didn't last. Duh. The small gestures stopped as quickly as they started. When I asked him to delete Snapchat, the app he had used to message these women, he refused. That's how I talk to you talk to your cousins on Snapchat. Look, there's text messages, there's WhatsApp, there's any other social media that doesn't immediately delete your messages. That's BS. And he said this while rolling his eyes. Audacity? I didn't believe him, but he made me feel like the crazy one for asking. Anytime I brought up boundaries, his temper flared. Who are you? You're getting mad at me? He'd snap, get sarcastic, tell me I was policing him. Then he'd storm off and give me the silent treatment for days. Our home, which used to feel warm and full of laughter, grew heavy and quiet. The tension hung in the air. I felt like I was walking on eggshells all the time. That's not a house. That's not a home. No. After months of feeling completely unloved, I asked for a separation. I couldn't keep living like that, but Chris refused to move out. He said I was overreacting. Then he started begging again, this time dragging the kids into it. Do you want to break up the girl's family? You should have thought about that when you were doing what you were doing. Don't try and put that on me. When I didn't back down, he went behind my back and called my parents. He told them I was being emotional, that I was just stressed. My mom, who came from a generation where you never left your husband, took his side. Marriage takes work, she said. You need to calm down and think about your family. I felt trapped. Every time I tried to leave, Chris would make it an ordeal. He'd involve everyone, his family, my family, even mutual friends. He told anyone who would listen that I was unstable, irrational, overdramatic. One afternoon, after yet another fight about his defensiveness, I snapped. I did something I'm not proud of. I reached out to Eli, someone I used to date briefly in college. No, tit for tat is not the way to go. Please don't tell me you're going to cheat. Please don't tell me that. We'd stayed friends over the years, mostly through social media. I asked him to meet me for dinner. I told myself I just needed someone to talk to. No! Don't do it. Don't fall down your husband's rabbit hole. We sat for hours. I vented about everything. How trapped I felt, how angry, how lonely. Don't ever go to somebody else and talk, especially somebody of the opposite gender, and talk about your marriage. Unless this is like a friend that you've known for a while. Because that's an opening a door like, I'll never be that person. I'll never do that. If you were with me, don't do that. Eli listened. He didn't judge me, didn't tell me I was overreacting. And somewhere in that fog of hurt and desperation, I crossed the line. I slept with him. Why? Like I said, don't ever do that. That is not the right step to take. And like I said, again, I'm going to reiterate, unless it's a friend that you've had for a while and y'all are established friends, never crossing lines. It wasn't about passion. It wasn't even about revenge. It was an escape. In some twisted way, I thought maybe if Chris found out, he'd finally let me go. That was not the answer. I didn't tell him, though. The guilt hit me hard, but so did the relief. For the first time in years, I felt like I had control, like I could breathe again. But it didn't stay secret for long. I confided in my sister, stupidly, thinking she'd understand. She didn't. She called Chris almost immediately and told him everything. He called me at work, his voice calm. Come home. Now. Okay. When I walked in, he was standing in the kitchen, fists clenched, jaws tight. The kids were at school, thank God. I know what you did. My first thought was to leave, but I've decided to stay. I forgive you. Okay. Because I'm a better person than you are. Weren't you the one who was cheating and cheating and cheating and cheating? And then while I gave birth to your second child, you left me because you needed a break? You're a better person than I am? Then he smirked and added, I've cheated on you so many times. It's only fair I let you get this one. I'm sorry. The violence that would have ensued after this one. For a second, I actually thought maybe we could finally end things peacefully, but I was wrong. He didn't forgive me. He weaponized it. From that moment on, every argument turned into a battlefield. He threw my mistake in my face, constantly calling me names. Trash, worthless, whore, which I would just repeat it at him. Trash, worthless, whore. Like, what the hell? He started monitoring me, checking my phone, demanding to know where I was every second of the day. Tit for tat. Okay, I need to know where you've been. Let me see your phone. Where are you going at 5 o'clock? If this is the game we're playing, I could play it better. He made me turn on my phone's location services so he could track me. Made you? He's not your father. If I went to the grocery store and took longer than 20 minutes, my phone would start blowing up. Where are you? Who are you with? Send me a photo. To which I'm doing none of that. If I didn't respond right away, he'd accuse me of seeing someone. Accuse. He'd even threaten to show up at my job if I disappeared. Show up. I'll call security. Then things got violent. One night, I was lying in bed scrolling through Instagram. Chris leaned over and saw a male influencer I followed. Who the hell is that? He snapped. It's just a fitness page. I follow a bunch of them. Before I could finish, he lunged at me. His hand wrapped around my throat, squeezing hard. I tried to fight him off, gasping for air, while he leaned in close and said, I want you to feel fear. Oh, okay. After a few seconds, he let go, smirked, and rolled over like nothing happened. In the morning, you stayed there? In the morning, he acted normal, ate breakfast, went to work. When I was quiet and distant later, he sneered, You're lucky I didn't do worse. Maybe next time you won't test me. Maybe I shouldn't judge that she stayed there. I would have packed up my kids and left. But then again, maybe you were scared that he would have done something even worse. I don't know. I'm not sure, but trying not to judge because I don't know your situation. After that, the threats got darker. He'd text things like, I could bash your head in and no one would know. Okay, 911, frickin' 911. Show those texts to the police. I don't think anything would happen because they'd say, actually, it's just a text. Nothing actually happened. But there are hotlines to call to get help, and they'll help you figure out how to get out of this. Because now, first of all, you put your hands on me. First of all, I would have already started calling 911 there. There's no freaking way. 911 would have been on speed dial. Second of all, he's continuously threatening you with, I could bash your head in, and saying no one would know. Oh, no, get out. Why are you still there? No. Once he told me that if I tried to leave, he'd destroy the apartment, so we'd both get evicted. It wouldn't matter to me because I'm gone. I left. If I go down, you're coming with me. That's when I started documenting everything. I took screenshots of every threatening message and saved them to a hidden cloud folder. I photographed the bruises on my arms when he shoved me, the scratch on my neck when he yanked me by my shirt collar for talking back. I even kept a journal of his words and behavior. Every threat, every shove, every humiliation. Every time he did something, you should have called 911. But I'm saying that from somebody who didn't come from domestic abuse, so don't take my word for it. I didn't know exactly what I'd do with it yet, but I knew I needed to keep a record, because one day I might need proof of what living with him was really like. I barely recognized myself anymore. I'd gone from being an outgoing, confident woman to someone who flinched every time my phone buzzed. Every sound, every notification, every vibration made my heart race. I started having panic attacks in the shower because it was the only place I could cry without him hearing me. You're going through PTSD. I'm so sorry that you're going through this. I stopped going to the gym because Chris said a wife who prioritized her own health was seeking attention. He'd text me things like, "If you love me, you'll choose me over that treadmill." Well, I don't love you, and I'm going to get on the treadmill. And when I insisted on going anyway, he yelled, "I prefer a wife who obeys." Well, have at it. Go find a wife who would want to do what you're saying, who wants to, quote, obey you, like I'm your child or something. At one point, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "I don't need your love. I need your fear, because fear means respect." Actually, fear doesn't mean respect. Fear means exactly that, fear, and it doesn't mean the person respects you. You're just scared that you're bigger and could hurt them. Respect means that they admire the person. You know, they in a sense, they want to be like the person, want to do what the person does because what the person is doing is positive. So fear is negative. Respect is positive. Fear does not mean respect. You freaking moron. That was the moment I realized he didn't even pretend to hide who he really was anymore. And that's the other thing I was thinking, like, how did he go from all these years of being A to immediately turning around and being Z? Meanwhile, everyone else thought he was the perfect husband. My mother adored him. She'd grown up with an overbearing father and believed that strong male leaderships kept families together. Yes, strong male leaderships does help keep families together. This is a bully. That is not a strong male leadership. Neither one of them. It's not strong, it's not male, and it's not leadership. It's weak, it's, I don't even know what to call it, docile, and it's bullying. When I confided in her about how controlling Chris had become, she sighed and said, "Be patient. Men are like this sometimes. You need to pray more. If you leave him, your next husband will be the same. It's better to be with the evil that you know." That was the advice. Okay, your mom needs to go to counseling herself, because all men are not like this. Some men are like this, weak men, but not all men. Hearing that broke something in me. I wanted her to see how dangerous he was, how scared I'd become, but she wouldn't or couldn't, just didn't want to, actually. My sister took his side too. Everybody in your family needs to go to counseling, like for real. And after you're done here, you need to go to counseling too, so you don't pass this on to your daughter. My sister took his side too. She told him about my affair and shamed me for ever thinking about divorce. "You made your bed, now lie in it." Well, what do you think about him cheating on me constantly, sister? But my father, quiet, steady, looked at me one afternoon and said, "I'm here. Whatever you decide, I support you." Those 6 words became my lifeline. I clung to them on the nights I felt like I couldn't go on. My friends started to notice the change in me too. I'd stopped going to brunch, stopped texting back, stopped laughing. My coworker Janelle pulled me aside during lunch one day and said softly, "You're not yourself. Is everything okay at home?" I wanted so badly to tell her everything, just to break down and say, "No, nothing is okay. I'm terrified all the time." But I couldn't. Chris and I worked at the same company. He managed deliveries while I handled the office. Our boss treated everybody like family, which meant everyone knew everyone's business. If I said a word, it would spread fast, and Chris would hear about it before I ever made it home. One morning, while I was getting ready for work, Chris texted me, "What have you done today to make me happy?" When I didn't respond fast enough, he texted again. "You're not on my lap. You're not praising me. Do you even want this marriage?" Never mind. I was going to scream what is wrong with him, but he had the audacity to even put his hands on this woman, so clearly he's deranged. I put the phone down, took a deep breath, and stepped into the shower. The hot water mixed with my tears as I sobbed quietly, hoping the sound of the water would drown it out. Minutes later, the bathroom door slammed open. He walked in, kissed my forehead like nothing was wrong, and said in this syrupy sweet tone, "Make sure your location's on today." Ugh. I must have scowled because his expression darkened instantly. He grabbed me by my shoulders, shoved me against the tile, and whispered through clenched teeth, "Fix your face." That was the moment I knew I was living in danger. That was the moment? But the real tipping point came a few weeks later, just before my birthday. All I wanted was one day, just one day, to myself. I asked Chris if I could go to a spa just to unwind, to breathe. He laughed in my face. "No," he said flatly, "and don't defy me." I mean, I could have told you he was going to say that. That evening, he doubled down. "You need to choose between me and whatever plans you have. I don't need a wife with wings. I need someone who listens." Something in me went completely still. I realized that no amount of patience or compromise would ever make him change. He didn't want a partner. He wanted control. The man who once cried and promised to be better was gone. What stood in front of me was someone who fed off my fear, who enjoyed watching me shrink. And as I stood there listening to him talk about obedience and loyalty, I finally understood. I wasn't just living with a broken man. I was living with a ticking time bomb. I started planning my exit quietly. I spoke to the building manager in private. We lived in a secure apartment complex, one of those places where you need a key fob to get inside, and management kept a record of who had access. I didn't tell them everything. I left out the affair. Instead, I focused on the threats, the escalating behavior, the fear. The manager said I'd need to document everything and just let her know when I was ready for him to be removed. Well, I'd been documenting and I'd been planning. So I reached out to a lawyer who told me to gather as much proof as I could. Texts, photos, anything that showed a pattern of abuse. She said once I had enough, I could file for a protective order. Well, I had all of that. So I started moving out bit by bit, leaving bits of my clothes and toiletries at my dad's place, just enough that if I needed to leave in the middle of the night, I wouldn't be empty-handed. I stopped telling Chris my schedule. I'd keep my location services on, but some days I'd leave my phone at work and run errands with a cheap prepaid flip phone tucked into my purse. I opened a new bank account in my name only. My dad told me if I needed help paying for a separate apartment, he'd cover it. That gave me a sense of safety I hadn't felt in years. Okay, pause here. If your mom is telling you men are all monsters, this is what she's saying, and your dad sounds like he's amazing, where is she getting this from? Just because her father was like that? Like, clearly, ma'am, your husband is amazing. So what makes you think that your daughter should stay with somebody that's hurting her and then telling her that your next husband will do the same? Because your husband doesn't appear to be doing this. And again, I'm saying appear because I'm only going by what I'm seeing here. I cut my sister off completely after finding out she'd told Chris even more things I had shared in confidence with her. And I gave my boss a heads up that I might need some personal time soon too, though I didn't go into details. Then I started telling a few people the truth. Janelle offered me her guest room if I needed it. My cousin Rosa told me that I could stay with her and her husband anytime. Saying the words out loud, "He choked me, he threatened to bash my head in," was terrifying, but it helped me stop second-guessing myself. Watching people gasp in shock, hearing them say that's abuse, reminded me that I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't imagining things. The moment Chris found out I was planning to leave wasn't planned. One evening, he looked at me differently, like he could sense something had changed. I must have looked lighter, more clear-headed. He grabbed my phone and scrolled through it, found nothing. He demanded my location history. I handed it over, heart pounding. The next day, he noticed a new account on our joint financial statements and snapped, "What's this?" I didn't lie. I told him I was planning for my safety. He lost it, screamed that I was trying to ruin him, that he'd take the girls. I stayed calm and said I had documentation of every threat, that I'd take it to the police if he tried anything. No, you don't tell him what you're doing. You don't tell him your plans. And even the accounts you opened shouldn't have been joint. It had to all... I don't know. He slammed the door so hard when he left, I thought the frame would crack. Then came the love bombing. Sir, you just choked me, hit me, grabbed me, told me you want me to fear, and then you're going to try the love bombing? Suddenly, he was bringing home cupcakes for the girls, flowers, cooking dinner. He texted me long messages saying he couldn't imagine life without me, promising therapy, saying he'd delete all his social media, swearing up and down he'd never raise his hand again. Sir, you shouldn't have done it the first time. I didn't waver. I'd heard it all before. I told him I was serious, that we needed to separate and draft a custody agreement. His response? We're either together or we destroy each other. No, you could destroy yourself, but I'm leaving. You do whatever you want to yourself. There were moments I doubted myself, especially late at night, thinking about Eli. I kept replaying it, wondering if that one night made me just as bad. But then Chris would catch me standing my ground and say something like, "You think you're better than me? You're no better than me." I started reading anonymous posts in online support groups, stories from other women who got out. Those gave me strength. One morning, while Chris was away on a work trip, I packed 2 suitcases. I filled them with clothes, the girls' favorite toys, and my folder of documentation, screenshots, printed texts, my journals, bank accounts, everything. I dropped the girls off at daycare like nothing was different and drove straight to my dad's house. Then I called my build-in manager and asked her to disable Chris's key fob. With my dad by my side, I went to the courthouse and filed for a protective order. I handed over the evidence. I was shaking the whole time. I thought I'd throw up. But I did it. When Chris came home and found himself locked out, he blew up my phone. I didn't answer. He called my dad. He didn't answer. Then he showed up at my dad's house, banging on the door like a madman. My dad opened it and said calmly, "You need to leave. Maya doesn't want to see you. A restraining order has been filed." Chris screamed at him, said I was ruining his life, threatened to wreck the house, called me every name in the book. My dad didn't flinch. Neighbors started coming outside to watch, and eventually Chris peeled away in his truck. After that, the threats kept coming. Then the apologies. Then the threats. Then the apologies. It was a mad cycle. He messaged me saying he'd hurt himself if I didn't come back. Okay. Told mutual friends I'd been brainwashed. Okay. My mother called crying, begging. My mother begged me to work things out with him. You go work things out with him. And I stood firm. The restraining order was granted temporarily pending a hearing. I moved the girls to a new daycare close to my dad's house, and I blocked Chris on all social media. His emails go to a folder I don't open unless my lawyer tells me to. And anytime he sends me something threatening, I forward it to the police. I'm not out of the woods yet, but for the first time in a long time, I can breathe. People's reactions were all over the place. Some of my friends, people who used to say things like, "You're so lucky to have a guy like Chris," were completely shocked when they found out what was really going on. A few of them rallied around me. Janelle, my coworker and now one of my closest friends, organized a meal train so I wouldn't have to worry about cooking during those first chaotic weeks after I left. My cousin Rosa drove down to my dad's house to help watch the girls while I went to court hearing. My mother, well, she was a different story. Even after everything, she clung to her old school beliefs. She told me I was destroying my family and needed to be patient. But the day she saw the bruises on my arm in court, she went quiet. She hasn't said much since. So I do want to point this out. I don't like when people say if they have quote unquote, and I put it in heavy quotes, values that are wrong, then they just label it old school. No, it's not old school, because there are people from the old school who did everything right, who believed in not beating your wife, not controlling your wife, not cheating on your wife or your husband. And vice versa. Don't get me wrong. But there are people from the old school like that. So don't put negativity on old school. It's people who are broken and haven't fixed themselves and haven't believed in fixing themselves. That's what it is, not old school, because there's new school people like that as well. My sister never apologized. She refused to take any responsibility for betraying my trust and actually doubled down on supporting Chris. Well, you go be with Chris then. I cut her off completely. It hurt, I'll admit that, but I couldn't keep anyone in my life who sided with my abuser. Time didn't heal everything, but it did bring clarity. I finally started therapy, something I'd wanted for years but was never allowed to do. My therapist helped me to understand so much. That cheating back didn't make me responsible for his violence. That abuse isn't just physical. That isolation and guilt are tools abusers use to keep control. She told me something I still repeat to myself. You didn't cause his behavior. You survived it. I started going to the gym again, not because anyone let me, but because I wanted to feel strong in my own body. I looked at my daughters and realized I owed it to them to model what healthy love and self-respect actually look like. Chris kept harassing me for months. He sent threats, voicemail, long emotional messages that swung between rage and pity. But once the restraining order and separation were finalized, the court finally drew a line that he couldn't cross. He lost his job after showing up drunk and screaming at the owner for taking my side. He refused to sign the divorce papers until a judge forced him to. Even after that, he sent messages blaming me for ruining his life. Yeah, sounds like a broken record. But I stopped responding. I wasn't feeding that cycle anymore. Instead, I poured my energy into rebuilding. My brother-in-law and I started a small online shop designing 3D printed miniatures and accessories. It gave me something to focus on, something that was mine. It helped provide for my girls without depending on anyone else. In the quiet moments, I still grieve. I grieve the man I thought Chris was when we first met, the life we were supposed to build, the way my family fractured around all of it. I also grieve the version of myself who kept trying to fix someone who didn't want to change. And yes, I still feel remorse for my moment of weakness with Eli, but I refuse to let that be used against me. That mistake doesn't define me, as it doesn't. What defines me is surviving everything that came after. Everybody makes mistakes. We're only human. Work on not making the mistake again, feeling bad about the mistake that you made, and make sure that in feeling bad and in acknowledging that it's a mistake, that you're not going to make that mistake again. And no, your mistakes don't define you. It's how you deal with your mistakes that might be your defining moment. Chris wanted me to feel sorry for him. He wanted me to pity him for losing everything. But the only person I felt sorry for now is the woman I used to be. The one who thought that love meant endurance. Who thought fear was just a part of marriage. No, ma'am, fear is not a part of marriage. Now, I don't seek his approval or anyone else's. I'm rebuilding. I'm healing. And my story isn't wrapped up in a neat little bow. There are still legal hearings, still complicated family dinners where people whisper and look away, still nights where I double-check the locks and sleep with my phone under my pillow. But I'm free. Free to laugh without checking the clock, free to plan my spa day without asking permission, free to tell my daughters that love should never come wrapped in fear. And maybe, just maybe, by telling my story, someone else will recognize the signs sooner than I did and realize that they deserve better too. Look, if you're in a situation like this, you already know what I'm going to say. You don't owe that man a damn thing. Not your forgiveness, not your silence, not your loyalty, nothing. When someone puts their hands on you, threatens you, and controls every move you make, that's not love. It's a power grab. I won't even call it power. It's a power grab. And power doesn't belong in a relationship. You can sit there and tell yourself you're staying for the kids or for peace, but what kind of peace is that? Walking on eggshells? Checking your tone before you speak? Hoping today won't be the day he snaps? That's survival. That's not peace. And your kids, as much as you think they didn't notice, they do. They see it. They feel it. Some might grow up thinking that that's normal, as you can see with OP's sister. And others will be hypervigilant and everything will turn into red flags. Either way, it's going to affect kids in one form or another. And that's the part that'll eat at you later if you don't break the cycle now. You have to stop waiting for that person to change. They're not going to. They don't need therapy. They need consequences. Every time you give that person another chance, you're teaching them that your love comes with no limits. And trust me, they're going to keep pushing them until there's nothing left of you. So here's the advice I'd give you. Get your documents together. Keep your mouth shut. Don't tell them what you're doing. Get your money in your own account. Tell someone you trust where you'll be, and then go. Don't over-explain. Don't argue. Don't even try to make them understand. They don't want to understand. They just want to keep controlling you. And as with this case, making you fear them. And when you start doubting yourself, because you will, remember this. The version of you that's scared right now isn't weak. That version is surviving. And that version of you that leaves, that's the strong version. That's the one that your kids need to see. And this is going out to anybody. It's not just women. Men are also a victim of domestic abuse. So this message is going out to anybody who needs to hear it. You don't need to feel sorry for your abuser. You don't need to carry the guilt for your abuser. They made their choices. They decided to put their hands on you. Now it's time for you to make your own choices. Leave, heal, rebuild, and you will find yourself again. And when you do, don't ever look back. Now, if you or someone you know are experiencing domestic violence, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. That's 1-800-799-7233. Or go to thehotline.org. All calls are toll-free and confidential, and the hotline is available 24/7 in more than 170 languages. Now, this story is based on true events. Names, dates, locations, and certain scenarios may have been changed to protect the OP. Thanks for listening. I hope this story helps someone, and I'll see you in the next one.